Hello, everybody. A couple questions for you tonight. Do you deal with mysterious unknown injuries that keep reoccurring with your dog? Or maybe an injury that you think you figured it out and you find out it's not what you thought it was. Or maybe there's something that just keeps reoccurring and you're not exactly sure what exactly is going on with your dog. Maybe they're just having an off day, or maybe there's something bigger, a bigger issue. These are a lot of things that I've dealt with in the past. I know a lot of my friends have dealt with in the past. And I am here to tell you that sometimes things aren't always what we think they seem to be. I'm going to give you a number of examples tonight. So my name is Erica Bowling. If this is your first time here, I am the owner and founder of Northeast Canine Conditioning. I love helping people turn their sport and working dogs into elite canine athletes. And I also have a passion for helping people take their passions for whatever it might be and turning them into profit, starting up businesses, expanding businesses. I work with dog people, horse people, and I'm also an associate professor of education. So I got background in technology, and I kind of interweave all that together. And on my shows on Friday night, I talk sometimes more business, sometimes more fitness, canine fitness related. Tonight, we're going to be talking about dog related issues, these mysterious injuries, things that they don't always appear to be what we think they are, but I think some of this stuff can also apply to humans. So I have a couple things listed here. I'm going to jump right into it, but I also want to acknowledge, thank you. I see I have people here. Thank you for joining us. Say hello. I know some of you are lurkers. You come and you watch and you never say hello. So if you're a lurker one of these days, come say hello, do it now. And I also, I'm checking right here to see who's in right now. But I'm guessing this has happened to some of you sometimes, where you think you know why your dog is behaving a certain way. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be injury related. It could just be something training related. And you think you have something figured out and you find out it's something totally different. So if you have an example, I would love to hear from you. So we're going to go ahead and jump in and get started. And again, don't hesitate to put in any examples or questions in the comment section here. But again, before we start, I also want to remind people I'm here on Facebook, on my Northeast Canine Conditioning business Facebook page every Friday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. If you're watching the replay, if you see this on LinkedIn or YouTube, if you want to catch me live, that's where I am. So Susan, thank you for joining us. Thanks for saying hello too and not being just a lurker. So let's jump right in. And when things aren't what we think they are. All right, example number one, the three-legged Doberman. And I'm not meaning literally 3 legs. I'm meaning the three-legged Doberman. It was my Doberman. The three-legged Doberman in the sense that she was limping very badly and was on 3 legs. So the three-legged Doberman, first thing you think of when a dog's limping, 3-legged, non-weight bearing on one, I think it was the front right or front left foot. You think, dog's got a leg injury. I was actually out of town. I was traveling. At the time, I was at a conference, and my husband at the time was watching my dog, and he's not naturally a dog person. I guess I could say that. And he called me. I was traveling, and he called me, and he was like, Rissa's limping, and and I said, well, is she walking a little bit? Is it like a little bit? Or is she like not putting any weight on the foot? And he was like she's not putting any weight at all, like completely non-weight bearing. And he was really, really concerned. And so I wasn't going to be home for a few days, so I said, take her to the vet and, of course, go get her checked out. I can't remember if he took her right away, but he was really concerned in the way he was describing it on the phone was that, the leg, she was not using her leg at all. And so he went to the doctor and, spent a couple $100, got medication, spent more money. And came home. Hey, Andrea, thanks for joining us. We're talking about my three-legged Doberman. 3-legged because she was limping. So, of course, I'm kind of all worried, and I think maybe she pulled something and give her medication, anti-inflammatories, painkillers. And, I had to wait until I came home to check her out. And this was after I'd done my canine massage course. And so I came home. She wasn't limping as badly when I got home. I came home, and the first thing I did was I laid her on her side, and I did a full body checkup, just kind of checking all over and see. And one of the things I do when I do a full body check over is, I look at their feet, their paws, their toes, their, the wrist, the ankle, everything. And I looked and she had a little scratch on the pad of her foot. And my dogs are inside door dogs. They got soft pads. They're not outside in kennels or in concrete, and sensitive paws. And if you ever seen, like, for not all dogs, but a lot of dogs, if they get just a little bit of a cut or a scratch on their pad, like, it can be really painful. And that's all that it was. And I asked him, did the veterinarian look at her feet? And he said no. And it was just interesting. We thought that this is, this major leg injury. Spent all this money, and I've had dogs various times that, for training and stuff, they've gotten scratch pads, and within 5 days they're totally fine. And so that was one of my lessons, was when my dog is limping and limping really bad, and I'm about ready to have a heart attack, look at the feet, look at the pads, and look at the toes. The other time it happened was I was French training with Bocce in a field. We were coming off the field. He was like, hey, yelping, limping really badly. And I was about ready to have a heart attack. I was like, oh my God. But I knew, calm down, Erica, and let's check the feet. And sure enough, he had this big sticker right between his toes, a sticker. Pulled the sticker out, he was fine. So that taught me, if I think my dog has a major leg injury, just double check the feet and the toes, and check the pads. We could have saved a few $100s from the vet if I had been home and looked at the pads. But that was one thing where it wasn't what we thought it was. Here's another example: the lazy jumper. The lazy jumper. I've heard different terms. People say lazy. They're not listening. They're being stubborn. Those are kind of the more common ones. And it could be in agility, whatever sport where there's jumping. And I've heard it a lot. If your dog's normally a good jumper, and all of a sudden your dog's just not having a good day jumping. And I've heard all the excuses, and I'm sure I've given excuses for why my dog all of a sudden is not paying attention, or maybe he's tired. But one thing I learned is when my one dog had the iliopsoas injury, the injury in the groin area, that can really be aggravated by that extension in the air when the dog is jumping and leaping, and it can aggravate and annoy that injury. So now, our dogs, they're not like lazy. They're not ornery on purpose. They're not trying to get back at us. And when I have a dog, or anytime I talk with people and their dog is normally a good jumper, and they're having a bad day, and they're just not doing well, they're hitting the jumps, they're not paying attention. I mean, that could be the case. They could be distracted. But one of the things I always stop first and say, could it be that maybe my dog is sore somewhere? Maybe there's an issue going on that isn't my dog being lazy. And so that is something, like I said, I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot in the training field and competition and things like that. And I hear all the excuses of why the dog's not jumping poorly. Now, it could be different reasons, of course. Your dog could be going to the jump and there's a noise or a dog on the side and, they're distracted. Definitely. But I just want to say, think about all the other things. And if your dog is not acting normal and something seems off, just double check and think, is there a soreness? Is there pain? Is there another reason, a health related reason why your dog might be acting differently or not performing how you're used to having your dog perform? So another example here, in addition to the lazy jumper, I talked about my three-legged Doberman. And this is another example of a potential front leg injury. Some of you have heard this story before. So my dog Bocce had been having periodic lameness in the front end, and I think it was his right foot, his right leg, and very slight limping. And I would go and check the flexibility and the range of motion, flex his toes, his wrist, check the paw pads, check the pads, and I could not initiate any kind of pain response. Like he would be trotting around and limping, but then if I was manipulating the leg, I couldn't get him to indicate and show any sign of pain. And so the last time I did protection work with him, we were doing a little bit of bite work and he was okay. And when I was taking him off the field, we got maybe, I don't know, 30 feet away from the entrance to the training field. He started screaming in pain, just screaming, yelping, yelp, yelp, holding his front leg up in the air, would not put any weight on it, and just screaming. And of course, my heart, like I'm just freaking out. I'm right next to him, and he's super stressed. He's in pain. I lay him down and kind of get him to calm down, and I get him to lay on his side, and I check the leg. He was limping on the right leg. He was putting no pressure. He's holding his right leg in the air. And so I was flexing and checking the toes and, checking the elbow. And I could not initiate any kind of sign of discomfort or pain. And my gut kind of told me that I thought maybe it was something neck related or something, along the spine. And I ended up getting an MRI done on him, and sure enough, it was not a leg issue. He had some issues with 2 discs in his neck. He had a mild deterioration of some discs in his neck and a very slight narrowing of the spinal canal. So I have herniated discs, and when I saw him in that pain, like I could totally relate to when I throw my back out, and it also made me think about like a pinched nerve and stuff. And so so that was interesting because when you saw him, like anybody who didn't know, if there were any previous signs of neck soreness or anything, if somebody just saw him in that incident, I'm sure the first thing people would have thought was, something's wrong with his leg. And if you think about for humans, think about when you're really stressed and you're tight in the shoulders, you're stiff in the neck muscles. If something's bothering you up around the neck, it's not uncommon to feel it down the arm. And one time I had, I think it was like some inflammation or a pinched nerve up around my neck. And my thumb was getting kind of tingly and stuff. And I could kind of move my arm in a certain way and activate it where it could be better or worse. And it was coming from up in around my neck area, up the top of my shoulders and my neck, but I was feeling it down the arm. So if you think about it with the dog, down the arm, if it's up in the neck and the spine, down the arm, it's his front leg. So that was, now whenever people, when they have a dog with a front leg injury, or they think it is, and they're trying to figure out and they can't find anything wrong with the leg, that always comes to mind is, is it something higher up? Sometimes we think it's the shoulder, it's the neck. Sometimes we think it's, around the foot or the wrist of the dog, and it's actually up in the shoulder. So just again, when they're showing issues or pain or soreness, maybe we're not seeing the immediate spot, but we're seeing like the limping or the yelping. Sometimes the area where we think the pain is happening, the cause of it could actually originate somewhere else. So just something to keep in mind, something to have at your, keep your head up. If you're trying to figure it out, you go to the vet. And also a danger here is if you think it's that one leg or that one foot, sometimes people might be so sure that that's what it is. They don't even look at the other parts. They don't even look at the neck. They don't even look at the back or the spine or whatever. And then you can't figure it out, and maybe it keeps recurring. So that was one of my examples with Bocce. Another time when something was not what I thought it was, heat exhaustion or heat stroke. I was working Knox, and he's sensitive to the heat. He's high drive Malinois, full of energy, and 110% in everything he does. And I have to be careful when the weather starts to get warm. Well, I was training, and I had some episodes, not heat stroke, but the heat was affecting him in training. And I've seen other dogs. I've seen when they've been on that verge of heat stroke. And I was training, and he was showing. It looked like the signs of he was starting to overheat. His eyes were kind of a little glazy. He just wasn't as attentive, and he was getting like a little bit wobbly on his feet. If you kind of go down the initial description of those signs when a dog has heat exhaustion, maybe those early signs of heat stroke, like those were the signs that he was giving. And so my first reaction, of course, was to hurry up, rush, cool him off as fast as I could and hose him down. And the thing that was very concerning to me was it was indoors. We were training indoors, climate controlled, air conditioning. It was not low humidity. And the other times when I saw him, the heat bothering him, it was in the heat. It was a high humidity day. You know, there were those things that you could say, okay, that's why my dog is acting like this. But this time it was like, it's like he was showing the signs of being overheated, but it was like we hadn't even been training that hard. And the temperature was, I mean, it was all climate controlled, and it just didn't make sense. And so, of course, I took him to the veterinarian. We did all kinds of tests and stuff like that. But what we figured out, I would say I'm probably 95% sure, was that his blood sugar was dropping. And we were training late at night, and I don't like to feed him right before he trains because he'll get diarrhea and, you know, it just doesn't settle well in the stomach. And we ended up training later than normal. And I feed him twice a day. So normally he gets his dinner like at between 6, 8 at the latest, 6, 7 at night in the summertime. And I was training him. It was our turn to go. It was like 11 o'clock at night. 10, I think by the time we were done, it was like 11 at night. And when I talked to the veterinarian and we talked about, you know, blood sugar dropping, and you know, I'm a runner and I've run marathons. It's like hitting the wall. You just lose energy. You just lose steam. You just don't have enough gas, you know, in there to keep you going. And I could relate to that. And I thought about it and I thought, you know what? He hadn't eaten all day long. He ate that morning. I don't remember what time, but he had gone, maybe he ate 8 or 9 in the morning. So he had gone 12, 13, 9, 10, 13, 14 hours without eating. And he's slim and trim, no body fat, you know, on him, no excess body fat, you know, high metabolism, burns energy, you know, young dog. And so what we figured is, you know, his blood sugar was low normal, but considering the intensity of the work he was doing, the fact that he had had no food all day long, that when he started working intensely and he's 110% in, that blood sugar started to drop. And so what I did was I talked with the vet. I changed his diet. I have supplements now, and I make sure I pay really close attention to when I feed him in relation to when he's going to train and when we have a really hard work session. And when I made those adjustments, I saw a huge improvement. And my trainer even noticed one of the things we saw is he was recovering a lot faster after training. It wasn't taking him as long to cool down. So I think maybe some of the earlier signs where he had sensitivity to heat, which he does, but I think possibly there might have been times where I thought it was totally heat related, and it could have also been a little bit of this. And he has a relative, a similar thing happened. So I feel like, and it's not like he has any disease or any problem. Like if you just check his blood sugar in the veterinarian's office, it's normal. It's normal, but it's like a low normal. So like I said, if you go 12, 13 hours without food and work at a really, really intense activity, I've done that before. I didn't eat all day and got on the treadmill and sprinting or boxing in a hot gym and I hadn't eaten all day. Yeah, I've gotten dizzy. I've gotten to where I wanted to throw up. So I could totally relate. So that was an issue, I thought it was heat exhaustion, heat stroke, and then when you look at the symptoms, when the blood sugar starts to drop and you look at some of those symptoms, it looks very, like some of them are like the same. He had the glassy eyes and just kind of not real in tune to me, getting kind of wobbly on his feet. Some of those signs all looked very similar. So that's one of those examples where it wasn't what I thought it was. Here's one more. This is my last one that I have, my last example. Again, if you guys have any examples, I'm looking here in the discussion, the chats, please feel free to post if you have an example, because we can all learn from this, right? It doesn't mean that, your dog's going to be suffering from blood sugar drop. But what happens is when we have these mysterious things happen with our dogs, it's like we're a detective. We're all trying to figure out what's wrong with our dog, and sometimes it's not really easy to figure out. So the more that you know, and the more stories you know, and the more examples, and the more you hear of people, so the next time you hear somebody and they're like, oh, my dog was doing A, B, and C, and I thought it was this, but it's not, and I can't figure it out, the more that you can learn these types of things, I think it just helps, and the more stories and examples. So if you've ever had something where it was not what you first thought, and something mysterious. You're trying to figure out what's going on with your training, why your dog isn't acting normal. If you have an example to share and you figured out what it was, or maybe if you didn't figure out what it was, but if it's something you want to share, I think we all can learn from that, from the more examples. The last one, this one cuts across a couple different topics, is I guess the example is the dog gives the appearance of having a lack of conditioning, but there's not like a good reason for it. So I'll give you an example. Training French ring, training on the weekends, really intense sport, very, very physical, very, it can be very demanding on the dog's bodies. And I have friends and they train, they train a lot. They train on the weekends, but it's not just the weekend warrior. The dog's out running and swimming and doing a lot of different things during the week. So, dog's getting a lot of decent exercise. And so what some of my friends were experiencing, and I guess it kind of happened once to me, but I don't know exactly for sure if this was the reason. But my friend was finding out her dog just kind of had low energy, and the dog just wasn't recovering from exercise, wasn't bouncing back, wasn't, cooling off or getting back to normal very quickly. And the big thing was the energy level. And the dog gave the appearance that it just wasn't fit, right? The dog was, it'd go do a couple exercises, it'd be panting really hard, and the energy starts to drop. After training, it just crash and sleep. And so it gave the appearance that, a dog that's not conditioned and you're just really pushing it, these could definitely be just lack of conditioning. But because of what they were doing with the dog, and the training schedule had not really changed. So the dog had been doing fine with the same training schedule. And then we went through a few weeks where the energy level just seemed low and, it just seemed off. The dog wasn't recovering, as quickly. It wasn't cooling down as quickly. And what happened, and this has happened a number of times to a number of dogs that I've trained with, it was Lyme disease. Some of them went and they got tested for Lyme, and sure enough, the dog had Lyme. They started treating it with Bocce, and soon after that, as the dog was being treated, they started to see the energy, and the dog started to bounce back to what was normal. So that was something. We had seen it we trained in Connecticut. Hey, Stephanie, thanks for joining us. We're talking about dogs that just seem to be fatiguing and not having energy, right? Lyme, the disease, I think it was just discovered. One of the biggest areas in the United States that has it is up in Connecticut. And it seems like everybody I train with up in Connecticut and New Jersey, New York, like the majority of the dogs I've seen up there, they've all had Lyme disease at one time or another. And so luckily the friends that I know where they experienced this is they had prior experience with Lyme. And so when their dogs started doing this, that was the first, always when our dogs, start acting, is that one of the first things is like, we got to go get them tested for Lyme and go see if it's Lyme. And I've had people where they treated it, and then, a year or two later, it comes back, they have to treat it, and the dog gets back to normal. And I know some people in the United States where Lyme is not real prevalent, but here in the Northeast, it is very prevalent. I know people and dogs that have it, and I know whether it's fatigue, lameness. I've known dogs that had Lyme so bad, like the dogs can't even get up and walk. And as soon as they started being treated for Lyme, like a complete turnaround. So here in the Northeast, when I have friends that their dogs are kind of acting odd, seem off, they're showing a lot of fatigue, strange lameness. A lot of times, one of the first things that we do is go get the dog checked for Lyme. So those are, Christine, you joined us, San Jose. Do you guys have San Jose? Do you guys have Lyme disease out there? I'm not aware of, I know it's been spreading and it's getting into more and more areas, but I know there's a few places in the United States that's free from it. But unfortunately, it's very, very prevalent here in the Northeast. Stephanie said, is Lyme a lifelong illness? I'm not an expert on this. From my understanding is it can kind of stay in the system. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong and there's a veterinarian here, go tell me if I'm wrong. What I've been told is that it can stay in the system, but when they test in the levels, it can be so low that it can be, not detectable. And you can have flare-ups and it can come back. The symptoms can come up later. But like I said, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a veterinarian. And you know what? There's a lot of stuff we don't know about Lyme. I've been reading stuff on the human side, and, people say, oh, you know, the tick has to be attached for 12 hours or more before you can get it. And then people are like saying, no, actually, the tick can be out in a very short amount of time and you can get it. And, you know, I've seen stuff reporting on research online on dogs and humans that I get the sense that there's still a lot. And I know somebody, a Facebook friend right now, that's dealing with Lyme and other tick-borne diseases. And there's still, from my understanding, there's still a lot that we don't know about these diseases. And the tests that we give don't always pick it up right away. Sometimes it doesn't show up. Sometimes it can, you know, be a few months before it shows up. But that is something, if you live in the Northeast, if you've traveled or you've been in areas where Lyme is prevalent, like I said, that's one of the first things that we think of whenever we're training up in Connecticut and New Jersey, Connecticut, and our dogs start having some of these symptoms. We're like, you know, go to the vet and get them checked. But like I said, I'm not an expert on that, and I have a feeling there are experts out there, but there's still a lot that we don't know about Lyme. So those are the examples I wanted to give you. And I'm just looking through to see if anybody had, nobody's given, Andrea said you had Carter show signs of periodic lameness, took him to the vet and got the Lyme disease diagnosis. Yeah. When you started treating him, did you see, I've had some people tell me when they started treating the dog, they saw huge improvement very, very quickly. Did you see much of, you know, an improvement or what was, you know, did it happen very quickly? Like I said, I had one person where the dog wasn't even walking. And I think within a couple days, the dog was like showing a lot of improvement. From what I've heard, again, I'm not an expert. From what I've heard, some of these treatments can be, dogs handle them better and can bounce back much better than some of the stuff that the humans are dealing with when it comes to Lyme. But yeah, that's a big thing. That's a big thing. Like I said, depending on where you live, and then also if you've traveled, you know, if you've traveled to an area, I've known people that have traveled to areas and, you know, their dogs or the people pick up something and, you know, they go back home. I forgot, it was somebody, they were out in California. I can't remember what the disease was, but it was something that none of the doctors don't really see there. And so people just weren't diagnosing it. But that person had traveled somewhere and they picked up something while traveling. So sometimes if you're trying to deal with something mysterious and you can't figure it out, think about where were you traveling? Where was your dog traveling? So I'm going to put this up for one of the things that's really, it was a really long URL. So it has tinyurl.com/caninefit. One of the things that really, really helped me and start to get more skilled in observing changes in my dog and noticing when things with my dog just weren't right. So I started to notice things. I didn't wait until the three-legged dog limping, but I started to notice things much sooner when something didn't seem right with my dog. And one of the biggest things that helped me start to develop more of that critical eye was educating myself and learning more about canine fitness and canine conditioning. The more that I learned, that really, really helped me to develop, to be more in tune, to develop the critical eye, the observational skills, to start to, not say I'm diagnosing it, but to be able to go, my dog seems tender today. My dog's not acting normal. Oh, my dog looks stiff in the back. And then being able to go to the vet and say, hey, my dog's not acting normal. This is what I'm observing. I found that learning about canine fitness and canine conditioning, the more that I learned, it really helped me become more skilled in this. So what I put here is the tinyurl.com/caninefit. It's a downloadable, it's a brochure on, I have a certification program, the Elite Canine Athlete Program. I don't offer it that frequently, and I'm pretty much full. I might be able to take one more person in the program I have right now, but I just wanted to throw that out there and to give you guys a heads up. I know some of you are in the program right now. Yes, you're here. Thanks for joining. Some people have been thinking about it, and I have people on a waiting list for the next time. But if you're interested in, you're really interested in passionate learning about canine fitness, on the fitness side, on helping the performance-wise, but also helping yourself becoming more in tune and more knowledgeable about how to identify these things and to notice things earlier when something seems off with your dog. And also, if you're interested in learning this and teaching other people and helping other dogs, whether it's search and rescue team and you're helping your team members or business-wise. But I wanted to put that up there because it is you just put in your email address and it will email. Make sure you check your spam box if you don't see it. It's about it's like a 13-page brochure, and it goes over my program. And so I did want to, I did get an answer here. Here we go. I'm going to put this up. So I asked about when the dog was treated. Let me just, so 2 rounds of treatment showed relatively quick physical improvement, but he still shows signs of lameness. That seems, that's what I hear from a lot of people. I've heard from friends of mine, it's not that uncommon, you know, that it might be 6 months later, a year later, whatever. Sometimes they'll have kind of a flare up. So that is something that's has come up. Let me see. I see a couple more comments in here. Stephanie asks, at what age should a young dog be before they could join, a jog with their owner? The recommendation here before jogging with their owner, you want the dog to be able to go, when you talk about jogging with the owner, like where the owner's setting the pace and you're setting a distance and the dog doesn't really have, you know, the dog's not saying, no, I want to slow down. Usually the rule of thumb is you want your dog to be physically mature. You know, not to say that you can't go out hiking and the dog kind of goes at its own pace, but if you're doing like road running or trail running and you're doing miles and, you know, it's steady, and you're setting the pace, not the dog setting the pace. The common rule of thumb is when the dog is physically mature, when the growth plates have closed and stuff, when you start, you know, doing some steady, serious running. And for that, you know, to know for sure, you know, doing radiographs and actually looking to see if the growth plate's closed. Some people say if you don't do that, I've heard some people say the common rule of thumb is, you know, to be safe to go by 2 years old. You know, but that's just kind of what a lot of people say in other canine fitness programs. So that is one thing. I'm looking here. Susan said Xena was chewing and licking alongside her spine and was being treated for allergies during the seminar in North Carolina. And you find out she was having back spasms. Oh, wow. Yeah. So this is interesting because, yeah, sometimes the licking, right? The licking can be you know, showing some sign of pain or aggravation. Interesting. So she was chewing and licking along her spine, being treated for allergies. How long was she treated for allergies before they figured this out? So the X-rays showed it. Wow. Yeah, Bocce wasn't diagnosed. We did the MRI was how we got his diagnosis. But it's great if you can do it with an X-ray. You don't have to do the MRI. Number one is it's really expensive, and they have to put the dog under to do it. So yeah, you know, growth plates. Stephanie said growth plates, breed specific. Yeah, definitely. Different growth plates close, you know, in the body at different times, you know, along the body, and definitely breed specific. Small dogs, big dogs, dogs mature at different rates. So yes, definitely that can have an impact. The breed, the age, the size of the dog. I'm looking to see if anybody had any other examples of things that weren't what you thought they were, right? And if you're watching the replay, you know, add your examples and stories. Like I said, we all learn from this. We all learn from this. I see a couple more comments in here. Let me see, I'm scrolling. Thank you guys. Thank you for sharing. So you said your client's dog is an 8-month-old, yeah, a Dobe mix. Yeah. 8 months old, my Doberman, Rissa. Now I would say her height, like her height and everything, she was done growing before the age of 3, but from 2 to 3, like she used to look like a greyhound, my Doberman. Like she looked like a greyhound, but from 2 to 3, like all of a sudden she started muscling up and had a chest on her. Bocce gained a lot of height after you think 2 years old, they'd be done growing. Bocce continued to grow in height. He had a little bit more height that he grew after 2 years. So, you know, it's hard to tell. Hard to tell. And like I said, the only way to know for sure is if you go in and you know, actually see if those growth plates have closed. So thank you guys for sharing. That was all great information. And like I said, it's not to mean that if your dog has the same symptom that's what's wrong with your dog, but it's just, you know, something to have in your toolkit to, you know, when people are trying to I see so many people when they're trying to figure out things and veterinarians aren't sure and you're doing all kinds of tests and, you know, sometimes just throwing stuff out there and knowing another option. So, oh yes, a good thing. Yeah, Stephanie said, go slow, no concrete. Yeah. if at all possible. If you're doing, I do canny cross with Knox running, you know, where he has the harness and he's in front of me. And yeah, if you can, definitely if you're doing distances, soft surface, not on the hard concrete. And you know, I've got herniated discs in my back, and I run. But I tell you, I did just a little bit of, you know, jog trot, you know, little jog, a little walk, a little jog, a little walk on a little bike path that was paved. And oh my gosh, like I felt it in my lower back. And then another day I went on a softer surface, huge difference. So like I totally feel it. But yeah, definitely if you can. Now I know I have people in my program and they work with service dogs. And, you know, when they're working the service dogs, like sometimes you just can't avoid it, right? You can't avoid it if they're working on concrete, cement, and buildings. But if you're going to go out and play with your dog and throw the, throw the ball, if it's a ball crazy dog, I always tell people don't let it chase the ball while the ball's rolling or when the ball's bouncing high in the air, because your really crazy dog can leap, pull something, pull a muscle, blow out the knee. But, you know, if you're going to go out there and you're going to say, well, today's an endurance day, today we're working on cardio, you know, you might be working on that hard surface, but when you get the dog home and the dog's relaxing, you're playing and you're doing things like that, if you can get them on a soft surface, that's ideal. That is ideal. Hey, Kate, thanks for joining us. Oh, it's recording. You can get the replay. So awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. I went just a little bit over time. Oh, let me put that URL up here again for my Elite Canine Athlete Program with the option for certification. Like I said, the more knowledge that you have, you're just going to get better and better at being able to notice things and recognize when something's off. Not to say you're going to be able to diagnose it, but to say, oh, you know, my dog seems a little stiff. Oh, my dog looks like he might be a little sore. Maybe I'm going to give him a 2 days rest, or maybe I need to take him to the vet. I find that having that knowledge is really helpful. So this link will take you to put in your email address. Use this link. If it doesn't work for some reason, message me. And I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, if you're watching this on Facebook, Northeast Canine Conditioning, but I can also email it to you. So Northeast Canine Conditioning, my business page on Facebook, I am here every Friday. I think this has been like 18, 19 weeks in a row. I have not missed, knock on wood that I keep it up. But every Friday I try to be here live on Northeast Canine Conditioning on my Facebook page and at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Share questions if there's a topic you want me to talk about. Sometimes we talk about canine professionals, canine business. Sometimes today was a little bit more of the fitness focus, and it just kind of varies week to week. These are recorded. If you're watching the recording, thank you so much. Add comments, message me, download the brochure. And if this was helpful, if this was something that you liked, something informative, if you think somebody could gain knowledge from this, feel free to share, cross post, email, I don't care. And whether it's a YouTube link, if you found it on LinkedIn, if you're here on Facebook sharing it. But if you thought that there was something helpful here, something informative, I'm sure somebody else will think the same. And it could make the difference. Just one piece of information in here somebody could go, aha, and could make a huge difference in getting a proper diagnosis for a dog and exploring something and helping a dog out and making a difference in their life. It could really make a difference. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming, and have a great rest of the evening, rest of the day. And hopefully I will see you Friday, next coming Friday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, Northeast Canine Conditioning on my Facebook business page. Signing out, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.